Three, two, one. Okay, so I'm with Kevin Corcoran, and he was one of the sketch comedy troupe called the Futurenauts, and he also co-hosted with me the show "Oh Man, That's Awful," where we would ask guests, often celebrities, about their most horrible life moments, and ask them to put a humorous or inspirational spin to them, and yeah, I don't know what else I could think of from Radio Titans days, but Kevin now lives in San Antonio with his wife and his kid, and he's written a new book that I'm going to try and help him get out in the world of a humorous book about fatherhood. And here we are. So, Kevin, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Carl.
And yeah, how did we meet? That's first question, I guess.
We met because Jake Friday and Rena were hosting the sketch comedy podcast Futurenauts, and I shoehorned my way in through willpower and bribery. I think I just gave the money. No, so I started like kind of co-hosting Futurenauts with them, and then we reformatted Futurenauts to be more of like a conversational roundtable conversation where sketch ideas were generated through interviews with our guests. And then Jake and I would go back and write and make and produce sketches based on that conversation and plug it into the conversation right after the idea was generated.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty novel. It was hard work. And, but we got to do some really ridiculous stuff that we were prouder of than we should have been. But yeah, you and I was like a bad penny. I just kept showing back up, Carl.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the order of that because I thought that was you and Jake's thing, the Futurenauts. So I guess probably Rena brought Jake in because I think I knew Rena before Titans, or at least earlier than you guys, for sure.
It was really cool. Yeah, we were down 7th and Flower, right?
Yeah.
On the 11th floor. And you had to sign in and stuff. And I felt so legit. I felt I felt so grown up, like the doorman will see you up, it's like, ooh, an elevator, cool.
It was our version of 30 Rock. That's what I really feel about it. It was like 30 Rock.
Yeah, for sure. It was goofy. And you walk in, you didn't know, you'd see somebody with a hurdy-gurdy standing in the middle of the lobby or something, It was like the Muppet Show, but with Asperger's.
Yeah, the Asperger's for me. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so then I guess what was your overall impression of the vibe? I mean, you already are speaking to it, so maybe that's enough. But I mean, like, did you? Because I mean, you're a pretty pretty straightforward dude. You're not a freak like some of these people, but so I mean, what did you think of? Did you encounter some of the really weird people, and what were your thoughts about that?
Well, to quote Hunter S. Thompson, it never got weird enough for me. Like, I wanted it to be gonzo all the time. I loved it. That's what was so much fun about Futurenauts, is like we didn't have the FCC breathing down our necks or whatever, like there were no parameters other than our imaginations, and I had to wait tables sometimes, so I loved that unfettered access. It was all about the comedy. You just go wherever the joke takes you. You don't have to walk on eggshells or second guess yourselves, even like you would in a club necessarily. That was cool. It's just like a really creative space, and you picked up that vibe like right away once you got off the elevator, which I really liked a lot. You could just you could feel it. Someone's working on something. There, you walk down the hallway. Someone's always like got their cell text, their final draft up, and somebody's juggling bowling pins in one room, as I remember. I don't know.
Really?
No. There's like a burlesque show in one corner at all times, as I remember.
Yeah. So then I guess the next thing that pops to mind is, okay, so then after a year and a half, I couldn't sustain keeping the office open downtown. Yeah. And I remembered finally this morning what the final straw was. It was that we used a company called Libsyn to distribute our stuff.
Right.
And what they did was, and I don't know how technology works when it comes to bandwidth and all this, so I just was afraid we were getting played, but maybe they were legit. I don't know. basically they would charge us. It started at like 150 when we had almost no listeners,
Right.
and they were supposedly good at distribution. So they were claiming month to month that we were gaining traction, which would be great, except for the fact that it added a lot to the bill. And by the time I finally said, "Oh my God, I'm out of here," I mean, it was very abrupt almost. They had socked me with a bill for $750 and said I had 2 days to pay it.
Which back in
And
those days was a lot of money.
it's still, I mean,
It's a lot of money.
I had no idea what to do.
Right.
And I just was like, okay, I'm out, we're done.
Yeah.
I may have to apply rent money to this, and or at least I'm going to bail and screw them. Let them come after me. Who cares? My
Right.
credit sucks anyway at the time.
Mhm.
And so, so we just packed up and left because, the frustrating thing for me was that I let lots of people have free shows or dirt cheap shows, but I should have been collecting dues of some sort. If we had collected dues from everybody, like, 20, 25 bucks a month for all the unlimited access, we probably would have been fine all along.
Yeah.
But I never figured out that at the time, I guess.
What you should have done was like
Yeah.
a John Hughes-esque Ernest Goes to Camp fundraiser, where everyone pools their talents, puts on a big talent show, and we save the camp at the last second. Yeah.
Yeah. There were a couple of moments where there was one time where we were, I don't know, we for some reason we had blown the rent on something else, and we didn't know what to do. And Jake Bowman was like, "I've got this idea for a podcast called Wei G," and it had some meaning, like some sort of esoteric meaning to it. It was Eastern language of some sort,
That
Japanese.
sounds like the Jake I know.
Yeah, and so and what he did was, it was amazing. He goes to there was one Asian businessman down the hall who was always wondering like what all the ruckus was that was going on, but he always had a laugh about it. He wouldn't
That sounds like
complain.
most of the Asian businessmen I know.
and so Jake convinced the guy, well, you want to be a part of want to have some fun in your life, come have a podcast with us, and you can discuss your business interests. And so he convinced this consortium of like 5 or 6 Asian men to pull their resources. And somehow, I'll never forget, he goes, "Wish me luck, guys." He goes, "May the universe be upon us." And he just leaves the office and says he's meeting with these guys for lunch. And he came back, I'll never forget it. He came back with like a $4,000 check. And all we needed was like 800 to survive at that
But
moment.
now you owe the Yakuza a favor.
But he was just like, "I've got it. Wei Ji has delivered."
Oh,
And we were like, "Oh, sweet Jesus, what an amazing moment." And
you blew it all on liquor and party hats, I'm sure.
we did. We did. Okay, so the rent was it was really good. I mean, especially considering the place, somehow Jake talked them into giving us 6 rooms for the same price we were supposed to pay for one.
Right.
And then it was an extra value because of the fact that Jake and 2 other people were living in the extra rooms. So it was value all around for the Titans family.
But the smell in the studio.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are commenting on the smell. Are you talking about BO or pot or both?
Yeah.
That hazy mix. Yeah.
A little bit.
I mean, I was surprised.
Like just BO and potential.
Well, there was also, I've learned in doing this project, people are admitting that there was sex going on. Like people would, like, "Hey, can everybody clear out for like 20 minutes?" And like, people would take their turn getting it on with a skyline view. So yeah. So there's all sorts of,
I mean, come on.
Huh?
I'm never going to work in an office in a high rise like that. I know that about myself. I'm not saying there was no hanky panky, nothing like that. Now we would like go down and smoke a joint once in a while in the parking garage or something.
Yeah.
Nothing untowards.
Yeah. Well, my big thing was my line. I'm still waiting to be interviewed for this. So it's like, once again, I'm the last to know or get to do the fun stuff. But yeah, my line that I'm dying to use in my interview is, "Hey, everyone else was getting laid and high, and I was the boss. Everyone but me was, and that's basically what was happening. Like I had no idea about half the stuff I'm learning now."
By the way, if I could address your audience for a second, this isn't a documentary about radio titans or podcast studios or anything. This is a documentary about Carl, and he probably doesn't realize it yet. But it depends on who edits this to bring that to the forefront, and it's going to be worth watching because you don't know anybody like Carl. That's going to be great.
Aw, thanks. There's our sales pitch.
If I could follow that up with an anecdote.
Yeah.
When Sarah and I got married 2 years ago, we were all lined up with our families, our parents, our extended families, flower girls, all that. We're all lined up at this at Elysian Park, about to walk up to the altar, and we're like 60 seconds away from starting, like the processional music, and my phone buzzes in my tuxedo pants, and I pull out my phone, and it's a text message from Carl saying, "Hey, my Uber's running a little bit late. I don't know what the heck happened, but by all means, go ahead and start without me. Don't hold up the wedding for me." And there's a picture on my wall in my dining room of me and Sarah doubled over laughing on a bridge after the ceremony, where I'm telling her that's what happened.
That's awesome.
I'll send you a copy of the picture. Like,
well,
thanks, Carl, I won't delay my wedding so you can get in your Uber.
Well, what I'm learning is I've been telling people for years that I'm like another Larry David, only the shit really happens all the time. But then what I'm coming to realize from all the stories people are telling me the last couple of weeks is I'm really like a real life Michael Scott, because I had everybody's going, man, you had a good heart. You always trying to, make things good for people, but you always say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So
my memories of you always entail you dropping a stack of loose leaf papers.
What?
I don't remember that. I don't think I've ever seen you do it, but I just remember you, shirt half tucked in, flustered, running late, dropping a whole armload of loose leaf paper. And I don't think you ever have, but it's just part of how I remember you.
Oh my God. Okay.
You're the only person I ever met who was late to a podcast that you hosted in your living room. You're like, there was this thing at the library. I got hung up. I don't know. The book exploded. I don't know what happened. Just go ahead and start without me. Something like that.
Yeah, I gotta send you the James Eckhouse interview. Unbelievable. I mean, what he says about us. I mean, it was mostly positive, but it was very funny.
I re-listened to it. It was really nice.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, you said he's had to run to rehearsal. He's like, I'm afraid it's not going to be anywhere near as fun as this interview was. And we're like, yeah, no, duh.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the interview. I'm saying I interviewed him for this project, and what he said is amazing. I'll send it to you.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
cool.
Cool.
Of course. And God, let's see what else. Okay, do you think that like one theme that also seems to be coming up on a serious end is the idea that the country is so divided now. Even as much as I liked him at the time, I now realize Trump was very toxic for the country. Okay, I'm late to the party there, but I'm saying like it definitely got more divided the last few years, and so we shut down downtown like a month before the election, October 2015, or a year before, sorry. Yeah. But the thing is, like, I've had quite a few people say, what was really cool was that everybody got along. It was everybody there, like, all races, men, women, all sexual orientations, all political persuasions. And I let everybody, as long as you were, the way I put it is, as long as you were interesting, I didn't care. I didn't even care if you had the money half the time.
Yeah.
Just do it. Have a good time,
and like I said, it was all about, well, for us anyway, it was just all about the comedy. Like, we didn't really care.
Yeah.
Anyone's personal views or anything like that. Like, that was never the point. We didn't want to get mired down in politics or personal views or anything. It was all about finding the jokes, like finding the weird stuff and getting to the root of that. And characters, big characters, people who are marginalized by society are typically better at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would always sacrifice a little bit of integrity for a good character, which is sort of a personal flaw of mine.
Yeah. Is there any other
I'd rather you be funny than good. really.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Well, okay, so how about oh man, that's awful. You said your favorite interview was the Sugar Man one.
If you can call it an interview, it was like half,
Well,
half,
let me explain what it was. It was
yeah.
okay. There's a documentary in 2012 called "Searching for Sugar Man," and it was watching that movie. That's where I met Christina Myers, who became my #1 woman collaborator. So there's the little history there too. And we were at the LA Film Fest, and it's a movie about this guy named Rodriguez, and he had a couple brilliant albums in the late '60s, but that never sold well. And years later, many years later, he comes to discover that he's been a big hit and nobody ever told him in places like South Africa. And he was owed like millions in royalties and all
Bigger
sorts of
than
things.
bigger
And the
than
movie,
Elvis.
the filmmaker's searching for him. It's called Searching for Sugar Man,
Yeah, they
and
thought he was
finally
dead.
finds the guy and changes his life way late, decades later,
Yeah,
gets him the money he deserves, etc. And we got to interview Sugar Man Rodriguez because he was coming to Cal State LA, and I always pulled the trick to get big names. I would say, hey, I'll do a story on you in the Pasadena Weekly if you'll do the interview on a podcast. And so that's what happened. And what happened then?
I mean, the whole thing was about 20 minutes long,
Yeah,
and it was
in an
basically,
hour long show. It was meant to
yeah,
be an hour.
it was the only time in a podcast I remember like an answer being given, 3 full seconds of complete silence with you, me, and Dave looking at each other like. There was one point where you ask him a question, he doesn't answer it, but proceeds to allude to the Olympics as like the International War Games, and we're like, right on, man. And I mean, you can make it. I don't know. He never really expounded on that. The answer ended up devolving into him saying, literally, and South Africa or South America is bigger than America, and they speak Spanish. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you said, okay.
yeah.
It was the most awkward 20 minutes in Oh Man, That's Awful history. It was weird.
Yeah, it lived up to its name for once. So then, any other favorite memories from those?
I remember the first few episodes, we thought it would be a great idea to have a hotel desk bell
Oh yeah,
on the table. And anytime something really awkward or terrible was said, we'd hit the bell, and Dave Robinson would grab the headphones off his head because he was deafened by it every time. Like,
oh that's why we stopped.
Stop doing that. And then one day we just forgot it and it never came back. But there was one episode, I don't remember who it was, but like it was just like one terrible story after another. We're like ding 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 ding. And Dave was just like, please.
And I'm sure that whoever's relating the story of how they wound up naked with a heroin needle in their arm in an alley, really appreciated having a bell going off.
And honestly, considering the guests we had, that doesn't really narrow it down that far. That could have been me.
I would say out of about 40 episodes, probably a good half were about heroin addictions.
Pretty much. Well, we had a type. That was cool. I loved it was cool. Like we got to talk to a lot of really cool comics and storytellers, and no, it was really enlightening and stuff. And we got to talk to Ellen Cleghorn. That was really cool.
Yeah,
she finished her doctorate.
She's going to do my new video cast in the summer. She just wants to get through the school year.
Tell her I said hi. I felt like we connected.
Yeah. She remembered everybody. She was like, "Oh, I love that show."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, and Greg from the room, Greg Sestero.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get him, and he's not responding to me. But
he didn't respond during the interview either. I mean,
he wasn't a good interview.
Like for 45 minutes to get him to come out of his shell or show some personality, and it was just like a lot of trite sort of yes/no responses to questions.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a himbo, frankly.
Yeah, I think he is a mimbo. Yeah,
himbo, like a male bimbo. Yeah, or mimbo would work too. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. But while we were talking, I just got good news. I was trying to make peace with a guy named Mark Ebner who had a show right after us, and we had a vicious falling out. And he's just said, "Yeah, I'll talk. I'll do the movie." Nice. So, anyways, hopefully we'll get Greg. Anything else you want to address?
It's too bad you and I never had a vicious falling out. It would have been a better interview.
I know, right? No,
Yeah.
what did you think of the Gaylord versus downtown as a setting?
Oh, that was super cool too. Yeah, that was like, it was a bit like the hotel from The Shining. Yeah, that's sort of a Shining vibe. It's a little shiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, super classy, and it was so cool because it was right down the street from my place in Koreatown, which was
Oh yeah.
a hovel, um, and basically just a big ashtray. So it was nice to have a little touch of class out on Wilshire across from the Ambassador.
Yeah.
'Cause my
I
house was
missed
right
her.
across from the building that they used for the front of Seinfeld's house on Seinfeld.
Oh really?
That
Okay.
on 7th Street, right by 7th in New Hampshire.
Huh.
It was like, so in every episode of Seinfeld, it's like I used to open my front door and see Seinfeld's house, which I
Wow.
thought was super cool and portended a career in comedy that turned out not to be the case. But your your front door faced where Robert Kennedy was assassinated. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just pop culture references, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, I think I got everything I need. This has been great.
Sure.
So I'm gonna wrap it up, but hang on, let me just stop. All right.